So we finally got to see the much requested 4-3-3 formation from Milan in action from the start. And it didn't really go as expected. This wasn't just a simple defeat for Milan. The loss 0-3 at home against Udinese was a structural failure. Across all three goals, the same problems appear again and again. Weak rest defense, ineffective counter-pressing, and large distances between lines. And all of this links back to one key decision: Milan's use of the 4-3-3. What's interesting is that the goals themselves look very different. One comes from a transition, one from a throw-in, and one from a second ball situation. But if we look closer, they all come from the same underlying issue. Let's start with the first goal. Note that I have highlighted in red the defenders, in yellow the midfielders, and blue the attackers. Here, Milan are settled in possession in Udinese's half with only 3 defenders behind the ball, whereas all the midfielders and the right back are primarily stretched along the right side of the pitch. Sailormakers is approaching the central space, whereas the other 2 attackers are positioned near the box. Udinese are defending using a 5-3-2, maintaining compact distances between midfield and defense. Notice then, in the central area of the pitch, there are no Milan players present, and since a fullback is high and wide, the midfielders are positioned ahead of the ball and attackers are pinning Udinese's backline, there is no solid rest defense behind the ball. This, as we will later see, is a crucial element. Milan tried to play the ball exactly into that central pocket, which is under pressure, and instantly 3 Udinese players surround the ball carrier with immediate pressure from multiple angles. The ball is contested and knocked away from Milan's control, and this is the key moment. Milan do not win the counter-press. While Pavlovic attempts to commit a second challenge, he fails, and Udinese immediately pass the ball forward and multiple players accelerate in the counter. Because the rest defense is thin, the defenders are forced to react instead of control. Udinese players carry the ball through the middle while Milan retreat facing their own goal, with many others trailing behind the play. Udinese attackers advance in support, the ball carrier approaches the final third with passing options available to the right side. The ball is released wide to the right. From this position, the Udinese player, who already has a great vision to either shoot or cross, fires a low ball across the box. Bartesaghi, under pressure and running toward goal, turns it into his own net. It may look like an individual mistake, an on goal under pressure, but the real issue happens seconds earlier. Milan lose the ball with no rest defense in place, and more importantly, they fail to counter-press effectively. From that moment, the defenders are no longer controlling the situation, they are reacting to it. Udinese's second goal comes from a throw-in that finds Davies on the right side of the pitch. He drifts toward the wide channel, pulling a center back, Pavlovic, towards the ball side. Interestingly, upon receiving the ball, the Udinese player is also pressed by both Modric and Bartesaghi. This creates a local overload for Udinese and begins to distort Milan's defensive shape. As Milan get drawn towards the flank, Bartesaghi is caught in indecision. He's not fully closing the lane to the ball carrier, nor recovering into a position that protects the box and the far post. Udinese used this moment to secure time and angle for Zaniolo on the right. Because Milan are late to block the delivery, Zaniolo can whip in across with minimal pressure. The key tactical failure now is inside the box. Milan's defenders are not fully set or marking the opposing player while still retreating and adjusting. De Winter fails to deal with the cross effectively, and the far post area is not protected. Udinese's player arrives at the back post between 2 Milan's defenders and heads in. On the surface, this might look like a simple defensive error, a lost header at the back post, but structurally, the problem starts much earlier. Milan are drawn towards the flank, they lose compactness, and their defensive line is forced to adjust while retreating. Once again, they're not defending from a stable structure, they are reacting to a situation they have already lost control of. Fast forward to the 71st minute, Milan are 2-0 down, chasing the game and naturally playing with even more risk. They are again in possession, higher up the pitch. The team is spread horizontally with midfield and attacking lines positioned ahead of the goal. Similarly to the first goal, here again the center of the pitch is dominated by Udinese player. Milan lose control and Udinese restart quickly. The third goal begins from an Udinese goal kick and the second ball win, which immediately breaks Milan's structure. Udinese emerge with control of the ball, and while Milan players are positioned on both sides of the ball, there are large spaces between lines and no possibility of counter-pressing. Udinese advance directly through midfield, creating a quick advantage situation. Milan defenders begin recovering toward their own half with limited immediate pressure on the ball. The attacking move progresses into Milan's half with multiple Udinese players moving forward. Milan's backline is forced to protect the box while still retreating, which opens the near post channel. The ball reaches the edge of the box inside the final third. Milan defenders position themselves between the ball and goal, with support arriving late from midfield. From here, a low shot is taken toward the near post and finishes in the near bottom corner. While many may claim that Udinese's third goal was an individual goal-scoring skill, Udinese here brings many players forward, highlighting thus Milan's difficulties in counter-pressing and transition, as well as the vulnerability of the near-post zone once the rest defense collapses. At this point, the pattern is clear. The distances between Milan's lines are too large, the counter-press is no longer effective, and Udinese can progress directly through the middle without numerical advantage. What we see here is not just a well-taken shot, it's the consequence of a structure that cannot deal with transition. So when we put all three goals together, a clear pattern emerges. Different situations, but the same underlying problems. Milan lack rest defense, they struggle to counter-press, and the distances between their lines are too large. As a result, every time they lose the ball, they immediately lose control of the game. And this is where the system becomes crucial, because these problems are not random, they are directly linked to Milan's structure in this match. In the 4-3-3, Milan consistently attack with 5 to 6 players ahead of the ball. The front three pin the defensive line, one fullback pushes high and wide, and the midfield steps forward to support. This creates attacking presence. But look at what's left behind the ball. In most situations, Milan are left with just 2 center backs and occasionally one midfielder trying to cover the entire central space. There is no compact rest defense, no control of the center, and no structure to deal with transition. So when possession is lost, 2 things immediately happen. The counter press is weak and the defensive line is exposed. Let's compare this with Milan's usual structure 3-5-2. With 3 center backs and a more compact midfield, there is naturally better central coverage and more players positioned behind the ball. This allows Milan to control transitions more effectively, to close spaces, apply pressure, and delay the opponent. And this is exactly what was missing in all 3 goals. Instead of controlling transitions, the structure simply does not provide the conditions for effective counter-pressing or central protection. But stepping away from the analysis for a moment, I think there's also a bigger picture with Milan right now. So here I've set up the same 4-3-3 against Udinese in eFootball, and yeah, let's see if I can do a bit better with it. But more generally, when I look at Milan right now, especially after the defeat against Udinese, I can't help but feel like we've seen this story before. It wasn't just a bad result, it felt like a reminder. A reminder of the Milan teams from the final year under Pioli, then under Fonseca, and even under Conceição. Different coaches, but somehow the same underlying problems. Most of those teams worked with variations of the 4-3-3. They had a clear identity going forward, they could create chances, they could score goals, but at the same time they always felt unbalanced. Open in transitions, vulnerable defensively, and often paying the price for that with negative results. It was exciting football, yes, but also chaotic football. And when Allegri arrived this season, I'll be honest, I wasn't particularly excited. He's always been associated with a more pragmatic, more defensive approach, and at the beginning that's exactly what we saw, a shift to a 3-5-2, a more compact structure, more control, less risk. And while it wasn't always enjoyable to watch, at times it was actually quite boring, it worked. Milan looked more solid, more organized, more difficult to break down, and results started to follow, even if the attacking side clearly suffered. But then came this recent shift back towards a 4-3-3. And that's where things started to feel familiar again, and not in a good way. Against Udinese, Milan didn't really get the best of either approach. The attacking fluidity wasn't there, chances were limited, combinations didn't quite click. But at the same time, the defensive stability disappeared. And the result was something we've seen too often in recent years. Goals conceded, a lack of control, and ultimately a disappointing defeat at home. In a way, it felt like a mix of Milan's recent identities, but not a balance between them, more like a contradiction. Now, personally, I don't think this is just about Allegri as a coach. It feels deeper than that. More like a structural issue within the club itself, a lack of a clear, consistent direction over time. There seems to be a constant tension between two ideas. Do you want to be a more conservative, result-oriented team, or do you want to commit to a more aggressive, attacking identity? And right now it feels like Milan are stuck somewhere in between, and that uncertainty shows on the pitch. Realistically, they might still achieve the minimum objective this season, qualifying for the Champions League. But even if that happens, it's hard to see this current project continuing without some kind of change. There's a sense that the gap between the club's direction and the coaching approach is still there, and maybe even growing. And usually when that happens, it doesn't last forever. Because the reality is, as long as the current model stays the same, Milan risk remaining in this in-between state. Not fully rebuilding, but not fully competing at the highest level either. A club focused on balance and sustainability, but not always fully committed to building something truly dominant on the pitch. And for a club like AC Milan, that kind of limbo might be the most dangerous place to be. So yeah, that's where Milan are right now, a team still searching for a clear identity and direction. Thanks for watching.